So a lot of men, maybe you think this, right? That women are attracted to men with money, right? They're attracted to wealthy men, rich men, and so forth. And there's a truth in this, right? But what we too often do as men, we equate the money, right, to attraction. So women are attracted to money, and it's not that straightforward, right? It's not that straightforward, especially when you're dealing with women who are more mature and a bit older, right? Because when we're young, we're in our 20s, you know, men and women, we're immature, right? We look for shiny, nice things, and we're not thinking about the deeper rooted aspects of someone and what we're looking for in terms of when we start to get into our 30s and we want an actual relationship, right? So as young men, what we start to think is if we make money, women will want us. And that's not correct, right? It's not correct. I've worked with millionaires. I've worked with men who are like work for hedge funds and in finance and in, you know, top of their game, heads of this, heads of that, CEOs, all that jazz. I've worked with these men who have money and they've struggled with women. But I've also been friends with and known men who are wealthy, who are incredibly attractive to women, right? And I've really thought about what it is that makes those men attractive, right? And it's not the actual money. Right, I know this is going to be hard for you to believe, right? But I've known guys who make a lot of money and women are attracted to them, and those women actually literally don't care about the money. They don't talk to them about the money. They pay half of what's happening, like what they go and do, or the men, they do really simple things with them that they really enjoy, right? Because it's not the actual money itself. It's who the man is underneath that's often helped him create that wealth and that money, right? So I'm going to tell you what those things are. Number one, wealthy men often move through the world with an internal authority, right? Because these men have learned to trust their judgment, right? To make decisions without constant reassurance, to create self-trust, and to, most importantly, this is so important, to tolerate uncertainty without collapsing, without shutting down, without getting shook. What this feels like when you meet these guys is self-leadership. Yeah. Sometimes you might think it as arrogance because they feel like they know themselves, they know what they want to do, they know where they want to go, and they're not afraid to say it. And you might think, oh, that's arrogant. But from a perspective of how they're felt when they're with women, they are felt as being steady, right? Clear and directional. Right? And those things are incredible and attractive to meet in a man, right? And that's not something you can just fake by doing it. You have to feel this way about yourself, you know? You can't fake it. It's why some of these wealthy guys, like I said, they meet these wealthy guys and they lack these things. Maybe they don't feel so confident with women. So when they're with them, they lack their judgment, their decision making, they feel uncertain all the time. And women are repelled. They still have millions in their bank and women aren't interested, right? But the guys I've seen who are, like I said, they embody this self-leadership, right? They are like internally resourced. They're not looking for women to tell them who they are, or put it better, they're not looking for women to reassure their value in the world because they already feel value in the world, which is even disconnected to their money, right? And this is something that a lot of guys find it really hard to believe. They are internally resourced. They're not externally resourced, right? And this is something you can learn to do, to trust your judgment, make decisions, be okay with uncertainty. You literally teach yourself these skills in life through mindset, through embodiment practice, through a wonderful program like Relate, which is coming up soon, which you can add your name to the waitlist below. Number two, they're not outcome dependent. So often, most men, we are so desperate for the approval of a woman or even for the approval of our bosses that we are completely outcome dependent, right? So we put all these hooks on the outcome and we don't put much value on the effort we make. And then we collapse when the outcome doesn't happen, and we become anxious and we become afraid and we become desperate for validation. Right? This is the thing. So many guys you speak to in the dating world, they're desperate for the validation of women. Woman, please just validate me. Please just say I'm good enough. Right? And that puts a massive amount of burden onto a woman. And it can be subtle as fuck. It can be really subtle, but it puts a huge amount of burden onto a woman that you meet, because women often feel this, like you're looking for a woman to validate you. You're always leaning in. You're always hoping that she's going to say something nice that proves that you're okay. And then suddenly you're like, I'm good enough. And then you're back to wanting her to validate you and so forth. And this becomes a drain to a woman, because emotionally it's a drain, right? Because you're constantly having to do some validation of this man in front of you. It becomes an emotional labor, which she becomes very allergic to, right? And then what you do is you put women you meet at the center of this kind of gravity, right? So you're orbiting around women, hoping that they're going to give you something. They're going to make you feel something. You're going to need something from them. You're constantly like, take, take, take. Even if it's not obvious, it's this subtle emotional take that happens, right? And men with wealth, men I've met who are very wealthy, they generally don't have this. They're not dependent on the validation. They're not even dependent on external things going their way, right? And I'm going to get into why. They see the world in a very different way. Number 3, and this is another important one that is really important to teach young kids, is delayed gratification. They've learnt delayed gratification, often because they've worked hard, right? I know the narrative around people with money is often they all got it from trust funds and so forth. And that is true for some of them. But even some of those guys, their parents made them work hard, right, to some capacity, right, that we aren't always aware of. But they've worked hard to get to where they've had to get to. They've had to grind and graft and move through like difficulty time and again. And I've worked with a lot of guys who, most of my clients actually are self-made men who came from families where they didn't get a leg up. If they're American, they're putting down their own university fees and having to get a loan and pay that back later. Guys in the UK, they put themselves through university or they've had loans and they've made it themselves, because what they have learned to do is delay gratification. They've learned to tolerate the discomfort of working 2 jobs while they're at university, right? Or going into a job that is really low paying straight out of university, or low paying to start with, but it will give them opportunities to move up the ladder, or give them opportunities to be in front of the right people, right? Because they see the long arc of life. They're like, I'm going to do this work now and it's going to be hard and thankless, but in 3, 5, 10 years time, this is really going to pay off, right? And how does this map into the skills that you need? One of them is this, the delayed gratification of, I'm going to work on myself now and I may not see the results straight away, right? And it's going to feel difficult, but it's going to pay off. Too often I meet guys and they're like, I'm doing this self-work and I've been doing it for 6 months and nothing's changed. I can't be bothered. Like, that's not how it works. You will not, sometimes you see early instant results, but the bulk of the results take a while to bed in and change, right? And that's one of the things that, again, through Relate, I teach, is because it takes time. It takes time to learn to emotionally regulate yourself, create deep presence, to become like skilled in relational skills. And you see, if you meet a man, if a woman meets a man who can delay gratification, she knows she's with a man who's got like staying power. A man who knows who's going to go, our relationship isn't great right now, but that's okay. I can work and make that better, or it will change over time, or we can work at it together, right? Or it doesn't have to be great right now because we're in a particular season, right? Whereas if you meet someone who just needs gratification constantly, which is most of us, right? Because we're addicted to our phones, right? We can't concentrate. We got distracted all the time. You're with someone who, as soon as something goes wrong, they're going to collapse, right? As soon as something goes in their way, they want to change and do something else. They're like looking around like a little puppy, looking for the next thing, the shiny thing to do, because they can't like lock into a plan. They can't lock into something they're doing that they know is going to be, or trust in their own plan, that what they're creating, or trust in their own decisions. Delayed gratification is incredibly, incredibly powerful. Number 4, a lot of these wealthy men I meet, they have this ability with responsibility. They are comfortable with responsibility, right? Because they've had to carry responsibility, whether it's the burden of what they're doing, the burden of the business they're creating, or the employees. They are used to carrying responsibility. So when they have responsibility, it doesn't feel like they need to get rid of it, or it doesn't feel uncomfortable. It doesn't feel like a burden. It doesn't feel like they're being treated unfairly. They just take on the responsibility and deal with it. And this signals to a woman, this man can take on the responsibility of life, right? Without complaining and saying it's not his fault and blaming someone else. He takes it on, right? He might talk about what's going on in it, but he will take it on, and he will look at ways to be, to create solutions, to be optimistic, but also creating opportunities out of the responsibility, right? Whereas so many men, we have the responsibility of just being men, and we're like, oh my God, the world's against us. Everyone's, judging us for being men. I can't be able to do anything. It's not my job to, what's it called? It's not my job to make women feel safer. It's not my job. It's not my fault that all these men have come before me, have been shitty, blah, blah, blah. That's not taking responsibility. Simple as that. If you want to look at the first place, that's not taking responsibility, right? And this is something that wealthy men transmit. Responsibility. They take on things. Responsibility. Number 5, and this is a really important one. What I see with wealthy guys, what I see with rich guys that I work with, is that they are really diligent in their work. Like the guys that work with me, they come to me and they're like super diligent. They're like, I want this to change in my life, in my relationship, and I'm working at it. No excuses. And even when they don't do things, again, back to responsibility, they take responsibility. But what they really do really well is how they respond to stress and setbacks. They don't fall into this, oh my God, I'm the problem. I'm never going to solve this. There's something wrong with me. It's like, what do I need to do? Who do I need to show up as? What went wrong? What needs solving? What needs fixing? What needs tweaking? You see, they don't go into shame and blame and even guilt, they get into self-reflection, right? Because of the relationship they have with stress, because they built a capacity to hold stress through the work they've done, through the career they've built, and so forth. There's something really, really common I see, because, this relationships are stressful. Not always, sometimes, right? Number 6, they have an attitude of abundance. This is so important when we talk about dating, right? The wealthy men, the rich men I've worked with, they have an attitude of abundance. So because through their business work, often they know there's abundance in the universe, right? Things are going to come to them. It's okay, right? More is going to come to them. Whereas what I see with guys who maybe have not made themselves financially in that way is that they think, especially in dating with women, there's this scarcity mentality of like, if I don't convince this woman in front of me to like me, then maybe there's never going to be another woman. And it creates this desperation. It creates this, need for validation. It creates this weight that you're placing on every woman you meet and every relationship you get into, right? And this abundance of life, abundance of energy, abundance of opportunity, abundance of humans, right? Abundance as a mentality, as an attitude, is incredibly attractive, right? And the last one, number 7. And this is an interesting one, because I think this is a really important aspect of when it comes to what we do in dating and in relationship, is creating experiences to co-create experiences, or actually you are leading. So you're creating experiences for her to feel something, right? When it's easier when you have money to make choices to, say for instance, you want to go to a beautiful place for dinner where the decor is amazing, or if you want to book something like go to Kew Gardens or this beautiful place, or a holiday, for instance, right? It's easy to do. But what I've noticed with men who I've worked with who are wealthy is they don't actually spend that much money on things like, dinner, restaurants, dates, and all this jazz, right? They just are more plugged in. They're paying more attention to the interesting things that are occurring around them in their city, in their town. So they may know about nature walks, or they may know about this beautiful garden somewhere and so forth, because they are putting themselves on email lists, or they've spoken to friends about it and so forth, right? And this is something that every man can do. You can find out what's interesting that's going on in your town and around you. And as men, we can be really shit at this, right? Is learning about what's cool, what's fun, what's interesting, what galleries are opening, what pop-ups are occurring, like what food markets there are, right? And learning about those things. And this is the experience in that so many people, when it comes to dating, we can be a bit lazy. Like, okay, first date or 2, you should be really sitting for drinks or coffee or walks, so you get to know each other. But over time, you should be learning about, who is this woman? What does she love? What could I create and lead her into that's going to make her feel something joyful, interesting, intrigue, all sorts, right? Because that's one of the ways that we create a bond and connection. And what I've seen with wealthy guys, with rich guys that I've worked with, is they do this very effortlessly. They find things, they know what's happening, they're plugged in, they're connected, right? Because they've gone out the way and they have networks and so forth. And these are the things, these 7 things I've said are things that every man can do. You don't need money to do these things. You don't need money to create these internal feelings within yourself, self-trust, authority, confidence, outcome independence, delay gratification, responsibility, dealing with stress, attitude of abundance, creating great experiences. You don't need money to do these things. You might tell yourself you do, right? But you can work on yourself to create these skills, because it's a skill set. It not always look that way, but it's a skill set. And so many guys, we get into this idea that women want the money, the actual money, right? When actually it's not that straightforward. Maybe there's some immature women that do. And if you're attracted to immature women, then fair enough, you're going to have to deal with that, right? But if you mature as a man, you'll start to meet a whole different realm of women who, they're making their own money, they got their own careers and so forth, who are attracted to something far deeper that's within you that isn't dependent on how much money you're making in your life. Yeah, they're going to want ambition. Ambition's another one I didn't even touch on. That's important, right? Ambition, like wanting to make something, but ambition can be the best nurse in the country, right? Or to, set up an incredible charity to help people. It may never make you rich, but it's an ambition that you want to create something meaningful in the world. And these are the things that are attractive, and the things that sit underneath them, the traits, the values, the internal workings that as men we often miss because we're so attached to the superficial. All we can see is the money, and we can't see how a man makes a woman feel in his presence because we don't know. Right? We've never been in his presence, or we aren't connected to our feelings in the way that a woman's so attuned to hers. So if this has been interesting to you, it's been a great episode, I must say. Say this for someone, say this for a man who just thinks, women want money, and there's a lot of them. So, and, because ultimately it's a way as men, we put our focus on the money we don't have as a way to avoid doing the work, as a way to make ourselves feel not good enough. And actually there's so much we can do. And if you're one of those men, you want to do something about it, your relational capacity, your ability to date, your ability to meet and connect with the sort of women that you really desire, I have Relate, which is a program about actually helping you create some of these internal structures, right? Because it's practice. There's skill that you need to learn and practicing those skills. And that's what we'll be doing inside of Relate, as well as things like polarity, a deeper understanding of women, understanding purpose and self-leadership, and eroding away some of the patterns that get in the way, that create fear and anxiety and self-judgment. So if you're interested in that, there's a waitlist down below. You can add yourself there, and I'll be in touch. Ciao, ciao.